sun in morning. And now that the sun is coming, let's talk about the sun, the healing properties of the sun, how we've been basically demonizing the sun, and the toxic effects that the sunscreen has on us, apart from blocking vitamin D absorption and so on. Since when sun is the enemy? Since when did the sun become the enemy? I mean, we are alive thanks to it. And yeah, it's absolutely crazy, I mean, unless you have to do something because you're working, because whatever, and you need some sort of protection because you have to be there, um, which you can use natural forms and natural ways to avoid this. Um, yeah, I mean, basically, everyone else could, if you can measure how much time you spend in the sun, then do. And it will depend on your, and your exposure time, and your skin tone, on many other things. But yeah, so sunlight offers significant healing properties, primarily by boosting vitamin D3 production for bone health, immunity, increasing serotonin to improve mood and reduce stress, and releasing endorphins. It regulates the circadian rhythm for better sleep, can reduce blood pressure, and has antibacterial effects, making it a natural aid for skin health. I cannot tell you enough about how important the sun has been in my healing. It's beyond beyond belief. And especially for mast cell activation syndrome, the darker my skin was getting, which in summer it does get pretty dark, the better I was feeling, the better my mast cells were, stabilizing. And most important, if you get to see the red infralight in the very early morning and at night, it is just crazy how amazingly it affects our rhythm. That's why artificial lighting is so bad for us, right? So yeah, the key benefits of the sun exposure would be vitamin D synthesis, essential for strengthening, the teeth, facilitating calcium absorption, as well as supporting immune function. The calcium problems are a big one for mast cell activation syndrome, because there's too much calcium bound but not in the bones, and then this flares the mast cells and so on. So yeah, mental health and mood boost is sunlight increases serotonin levels, which help reduce stress, anxiety, symptoms of seasonal affective disorder, and so on. Improves sleep. Early morning light exposure, like I said, helps regulate the circadian rhythm, reducing melatonin production during the day to aid alertness and ensuring better sleep quality at night. Immune system support. UV radiation assists in killing bacteria, boosting the immune system's ability to fight infections. Skin health and healing. Historically, controlled sun exposure has been used to treat skin conditions including acne, psoriasis, and to improve immune regulation in skin. Cardiovascular metabolic health. Sunlight exposure can help lower blood pressure and might help regulate metabolism and curb obesity through the release of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is such an important issue that I'm going to do another whole video about it, because it really matters, especially for men. So, well, for everyone really, but for other reasons. So I'll go into it. So yeah, to gain these benefits, experts often recommend like 20-30 minutes of sun exposure in the morning, to minimize, the risk. But it will again depend on your skin tone, on how used you are to be in the sun. And this is something that, we are not kids, although they treat us like, and we have enough reason to measure how much we are in the sun, unless you're making a job that is outdoors, and then you need some sort of natural protection, which they are. So yeah, the biggest problem, which freaks me out every time I see it, I mean, why on earth do I why is everyone wearing bloody sunscreen? What the hell? I mean, first of all, you need vitamin D. That's going to block your absorption. But this is not the main issue, although it is, it's huge. The biggest problem with all this is going to be how bloody insanely toxic those stuff is. I mean, you don't need to block your vitamin D production. You can protect from burns again with natural containing stuff, which already is in nature. Humans evolved under the sun. And basically, that's why we are alive. We do not need bloody sunscreen. And we don't need to poison other people with our sunscreen. It's absolutely not. And please, I mean, once again, the main issue with especially skin cancer is not going to be the sun. Is the seed oils oxidizing because of it. So what's your diet? Instead of being scared from the sun because it's there, that's where the problem lies. So this is, the lie that we've been told over and over again. And it needs to be, again, if we keep consuming seed oils, these seed oils are going to get oxidized. That's where, along the sun, when they do oxidize, they could possibly cause this along the terrain cancer state. But it's not going to be the sun, it's your diet against the sun, your lifestyle, your diet, and so on. So yeah, stop demonizing the sun, and then actually do demonize your toxic diets, which are the main issue here. So yeah, sunscreen application is the main strategy used to prevent, the UV radiation, basically, despite the increased frequency of sunscreen worldwide, the prevalence of certain sun exposure pathologies uh, are increasing. And the reason why is because this is not the issue. The issue is your diet, the seed oils oxidizing with it. It's not the sun. In fact, the sun is actually protecting you, but you know. But the problem is with all these substances, which every time I see, moms and dads, whatever, they put sunscreen to the kid because they are unfortunately brainwashed and misinformed. And whenever I see those kids floating around, like walking, like, I don't know, like they are covered in cream, and it's just, it freaks me out. It completely freaks me out. They are destroying their hormonal health, they are intoxicating other people, and they are basically not protecting them from anything, which is a huge, horrible industry that it's just basically evil. And the fact that we are indoors for so bloody long nowadays, and we don't take in mind all this is just crazy, right? We need to re-educate ourselves on this. I mean, I was a child from the 80s. I was never bathed in sunscreen, thanks bloody God. But it's just not good. And yet, because of environmental toxins, I still managed to get sick. So just imagine, right? So yeah, basically, the evidence for increasing levels of these agents in the environment, which leads to indirect exposure of wildlife and humans. So recent studies suggest the toxicological nature for most of these agents. So reviews on the role of these agents in developing and endocrine impairments, both pathology and related mechanisms, are based on both animal and human studies. Yet information regarding the potential neurotoxicity of these agents, it's, I mean, actually it's huge. Um, Data regarding the neurotoxicity of several organic filters. So basically, octylmethoxycinamate. So excuse me if I say the words wrong, because again, if you cannot read the label, do not bloody use it. Eat it or put it in your skin, because everything you put in your skin is going to go straight to your bloodstream. It's not like you're not absorbing it. So yeah. Methoxycinate benzophenone 3, methylbenzildine campor 3, benzildine campor, and octolin, and two allowed in organic filters, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, is presented and discussed. Taken together, this review, is basically whether all these substances are safe or not, or basically there is an evil industry behind it. So I just cannot believe that we are actually still using this. No, so these are several types of electromagnetic radiation emitted by the sun, the UVA and the UV, which range at 320, 400, and are not absorbed by the ozone layer. UVB range, which range 290, 320, and are partially absorbed by the ozone layer, and the UVC rays, which are stopped by the ozone layer. The determinal effect of exposure to UVA and UVB rays concluded that such exposure can lead to reactive oxygen species, which are ROS. But this again happens because of we are feeding like incredibly toxic seed oils to our bodies. Therefore, this is going to increase by a million when it should not happen, right? So, so yeah. Again, there are so many of the ingredients. I'm not going to go into them because they are so bloody hard to pronounce. But that's the thing again. Many factors might influence human exposure to UV filters. No, geographic location, season, lifestyle, gender, occupation, which means it can be highly individualized. But again, it's common sense. If you are fair skinned, you're not going to be able to be in the sun um, an hour to start with. But the problem is our lifestyle is causing these sort of things to happen. Like, say, someone from England, a fair skinned British person comes to Spain, for instance, and they are in the sun more than usual because they only have a week on holidays, right? And what happens? They become prawns. They are red as hell and they burn. I understand you only have a week, but you have to be sensible with this. And it's not about how much sunscreen you put, it's about being sensible about how long you're actually staying under the sun, and just build up slowly to it. And then again, what's your diet, what's your lifestyle, because this is what's going to oxidize with the sun and cause trouble. So it's not a sunscreen problem. The sun is not the problem again. The problem is your diet and your lifestyle, and that's that. So yeah, please stop using sunscreen. It is absolutely nuts. There are sunscreen natural organic solutions that you can use. Again, if you're, for instance, someone that works outdoors and need to be there whether they like it or not, there are ways to do it, which I'm going to do another video on it, on how to prepare those stuff, how to do and prepare natural sunscreen and so on. But yeah, and then again, vitamin D absorption, which is really needed. And the fact, another thing is using sunglasses. Sunglasses can be used again if you're driving, if you really need to do, stop the light from bothering you. You can momentaneously use them, but not, I see people where whenever they are outside, they use sunglasses. This is gonna again block your vitamin D synthesis. Your eyes need to be exposed to natural light to regulate hormones, to regulate biorhythms, to many things. So yeah, beware of that as well. And yeah, so yeah, again, artificial lightning. Beware of that as well. In the past, it's just crazy that they demonized basically everything about the sun. When without the sun, we would be dead. It's just insane. We need the sun for everything. And in the past, not that long ago, hospitals used to have sunroofs to heal patients, syphilis patients, whatever. They had sunroofs. Or they would send them abroad near the sea to get all these electrons and so on. Why the hell did we forget about it? Where is the sun? Where is the natural lighting in an actual, in a nowadays hospital is nowhere to be seen, you see? So yeah, in the past, in the, last century or at the beginning of last century, basically, uh, many institutions had been rebuilt as loose clusters of one, right? So historians estimate that three-quarters of hospital construction in Britain, for instance, they had these pavilion model places with tall sash windows, double doors at each end, and ventilating turrets on the roof kept a constant turn of fresh air, sun, warm air. Many, can recall these depictions of peaceful infirmaries, now hospitals, with nurses pushing patients around the lawns and doctors tending to patients soaking up the fresh air and sunshine. That's how incredibly important it is. You know, Energizing light and air. Back in England, inventor architect William Strutt demonstrated that sunlight didn't have to compete with, sooty fireplaces for dominance, basically. Um, his Derbyshire General Infirmary in 1810 or so featured large windows combined with a heating system. This system drew fresh air in under the floor, slightly warmed it, and vented it out throughout rooftop and chimneys. So yeah, the lessons that still shine. Daylight is medicine. Modern studies echoed what in the 19th century matrons observed. Surgical patients near windows use fewer painkillers. Depressed in patients go home days earlier when assigned to sun-filled rooms. And the same happens if they are actually able to see nature, to see trees, and so on. Design is therapy. By treating building plans as part of the treatment protocol, pavilion reformers turned architecture into a clinical tool long before evidence-based designs. Comfort invites compassion. So nurses writing, the Lancet during the 1880s noted that families lingered longer and provide more help. when words felt bright and well ventilated. No one wants to be in a crowded, horrible place, by the way, filled with poison food, and pretend to heal in that. That's not just, it's just not gonna happen. So, yeah, its sunrise that glints across polished corridors today is quite salute to those 19th century minds who refused to accept gloom as a side effect of illness. They studied, sketched, and sometimes argued for the sun indoors, not as decoration, but as a partner in healing. Their legacy is the chant of light that falls across the recovering child pillow, the view of treetops from an oncology chair, and the knowledge that sometimes the best prescription is simply to pull back the curtain and let the day pour in. No one inside a dark room without natural lighting, without sun, without fresh air is gonna possibly heal. It's just not possible. So, yeah, um, I cannot believe that we demonize what brings us life. It's something that makes me really, really angry. First of all, because I do still have chemical sensitivities, and being, I just, last time I went to the beach, I had to run away from people. They had, a pool of oil in the sea, and it was unbelievable. All that poison goes through your skin. I don't want to basically swim in poison, and I hope everybody else does the same. They are affecting others, they are affecting the environment, and they are affecting themselves to such an extent they have no idea. Not to say as well that all these substances affect our endocrine system. So, I mean, I don't want to go into this very much, which I explained in another video, but they mainly interact with our hormones, especially estrogen in man and woman. So, this is not something you want to put to your child at all. So, yeah, um, embracing nature in healing. Beyond sunlight, there are growing recognitions of the importance of nature in healing. So, biophilic design, which concepts people to nature, is gaining traction. This approach includes elements like indoor gardens, water features, and natural materials. Studies show that patients in environments enriched with nature experience less stress, anxiety, they heal faster, and report higher satisfaction with the care. As we continue to learn from the past, we can create spaces that not only treat illness but also nurture the spirit. So, I was talking the other day, and I was realizing that we are so incredibly disconnected with nature that is actually insane. You know, like the last few weeks, I was feeling a bit worse than usual. And then I realized, right, okay, dandelions are growing, milk thistle, all the liver herbs are on fire now. Why? Because this is the time where your body starts detoxing your liver. And, if we pay a close attention to nature, it's gonna tell us exactly what we need, when, what's going on, and why. And obviously, detoxing is a good thing, but sometimes you feel worse before you actually do feel better. So this is what's happening to many, chronic illness patients. But we need to pay attention to it. What time of the year is it? Same happens with food. We are not eating what's in season. Therefore, we are bloody confused. It doesn't make any sense to eat, I don't know, to be in Scandinavia or, in Sweden and eat a pineapple in December. It really doesn't, right? Your body's going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? So, yeah, all these things have to be in consideration and get close to nature again. And when I mean be in nature, I don't mean like an amusement park that you go at the weekends. I mean live in nature. I know many of you, I mean, in my case, was death or life. I had to get out of the city, or I was basically literally dying. And to maintain it for my disease, I had to do the same. But I believe that most people at some point or another are gonna have to do the same if they want to keep surviving, because the way we're going is just basically not working. And I'm talking about living close to nature, but living with nature is not, again, an amusement park that you go to. And then related to indoors working, we have to stop the artificial lighting, and yeah, just basically follow the rhythm of nature. Blue screens do not help, all this. Obviously, we are in this century, these things exist, but we need to hack them as much as we can. And nature is not gonna change, we have to stay with it and be with it. And same with the sun. So please do not be afraid of the sun, but be afraid of your toxic diet if you actually have one, and many of the things I just said, because this is what's going to cause trouble, not the sun. The sun is our friend, it's there for a reason, and it's giving us life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy Sunday.